So everybody, this is Sarah. And Sarah was a former student of mine. And I'm so excited. We touched base, caught up this week. And we are going to be talking about a topic that showed up in a previous Shay Shares. And on that Shay Shares, someone had mentioned that that they were cutting themselves, or it was another person who said that, how do you help someone, Mr. Sun? How do you help someone when they're cutting? And Sarah and I were having a conversation about high school. You should just graduate from high school, right, Sarah?
Yes, I did.
Congratulations!
Thank you. Thank you so much.
And you had mentioned the fact that you have been helping friends and people at school for a little while. And so what I'd like you to do is, today's topic of Shay Shares is about self-care versus self-harm, and specifically with teens, and how Sarah has a really heart for this topic. And so, Sarah, if you can just kind of go ahead, hey Sherry, share with everybody, just introduce yourself in the very beginning. Can we start there?
Yeah.
Awesome.
Okay, so my name is Sarah. Hi. It's very nice to see everybody here. So I've known Mr. Sun since I was in 8th grade. And when I met Mr. Sun, I was going through a lot, and I'm still going through a lot. But when I met him, I felt like I had nobody, literally nobody. And he was the first person that was truly there for me. And he taught me what it meant to feel love for myself and to care about myself. And he was a huge part in making me be so comfortable in my own skin getting into high school. Although I did deal with a lot getting into high school, and forcing myself to find positive ways of, handling my anger and handling sadness and loneliness. But I definitely believe, Mr. Sun was the first steps in catalyzing my reactions and how I act. So, yeah.
Well, thank you for saying this, Sarah. I probably should mention this. Sarah was one of my two main leaders, and she gave me this little red card that's actually still in my wallet. And I keep it in my wallet, and it's been there for 5 years, I think, right? It's been 4 or 5 years, maybe 4 years, right? So it's been 4 years since you were in 8th grade. And so that's how much my time with you meant to me, and the impact you had on my life too. So it's not a one-way street at all.
Oh my gosh, that's so sweet. Thank you.
No, I mean that. I always saw leadership qualities in you. It wasn't even, I don't even want to say it was potential. It was I saw it. It was not just potential energy, they say, it's kinetic energy,
Right.
I saw you, loving your classmates. It's funny because we talked about Agent of Change names, and mine is Agent Fox, right? The Phoenix from Harry Potter. And yours, do you remember your agent name?
Yes, Agent Love.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I really think this whole concept of love totally fits in with self-care.
It definitely does. Because I feel like if you don't have love, it's in yourself, and you don't have love for others, you're living in a life that is just full of sadness and hopelessness. And I feel like love is just one of the foundational pillars of leading a successful life.
Yeah. It's interesting. I was sharing with my class not too long ago, and I was saying the fact that when we adopted Timothy had quite a few surgeries, and one of the doctors said that besides giving him food and shelter, that just as important was love. And it was interesting for this doctor, Kaiser, to talk about love like it was something that you pull out of a refrigerator, or something like it was a physical object. And it's you can give your kid all these physical things, but if you don't give them love, they will not flourish. They will not thrive. That love is that real.
That's very true.
Yeah.
That kind of reminds me of, I was in psychology and sociology this year at last year high school, and my teacher was Mr. Roby. If Mr. Roby ever watches this, Mr. Roby, hi.
Yay! Go teacher.
So in his class, we learned about a woman, a girl at the time, named Jeannie. Maybe you might have heard of her, Jeannie the Wild Child. So this kind of correlates with what we're talking about, because Jeannie was a woman, a child at the time, that had been abused as a child, and she was isolated in this room where she didn't have any love. She didn't have her parents in her life. She was literally isolated in a room, abused, like beaten, like no physical contact, no like emotional or, you know, mental support. And she, when she got out of it, she eventually, like, CPS found her. When she was found, like, it was really hard for her to get attached to people, and it was really hard for her to make emotional connections. It was hard for her to grow as a human being, because love is love, and care and having somebody that's going to be there for you is needed so much, like the foundation of your growth. And if you don't have that, then it's really hard to grow without it.
So this was probably a case study that you're talking about, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. It reminds me of, have you ever seen that video with those two monkeys? I don't know, it's one monkey. It's one monkey, and it's a baby, and it's like this science experiment, which is really quite sad. But there's this one, like, there's two robot monkeys, right?
Right.
Like mommy monkeys, but there's like this real, you know, baby like monkey. And the robot monkey that's not even covered in any, like,
I know what you're talking about.
You know what I'm talking about?
I know what you're talking about.
Okay, so share that. Do you remember? Yeah.
Yeah, so like there was like a mommy robot, and there was like an actual real like mother monkey, right?
No, it was a robot monkey, but it was just covered in fur, right?
Right, and like it would give like food and everything, but it wasn't like enough for the baby, right?
Yeah, so there's one that was a robot that gave food, and there was another one that
just like
all it was just covered in fur. And the baby monkey, instead of going to the one with food, would actually go to the one that felt like a mom.
Right.
Yeah.
Because
because of touch and like comfort and things like that. So that says a lot about our need for love.
Right. It definitely does.
Yeah.
I've talked to my mom about this so much, because my mom and I don't have the best relationship, but she's really close to me, like in heart, because she is my mom. And I always tell her, like, you can pay for everything in my life, but I'd rather you just be there for me emotionally.
Oops.
So I know that I have somebody there for me.
Right. Hold on. Hold on. I don't know how I just disappeared right now. That is crazy. I don't even know what I just did.
Hi.
Oh, there we go. That's weird. I must have touched something.
It's okay.
Sorry about that. Go ahead.
What was I saying so far? I was saying,
Dude, I think you're talking about your mom, right?
Yeah, I was talking about my mom. So yeah, I like basically like having, like, I'd rather have my mom in my life, like emotionally supported, than have her spend like thousands of dollars on whatever I want. Because in the end, what's more important isn't about the materialistic things, but it's about the relationships that you have.
Yeah. Well, at the end of our life, right? Isn't that what life is about?
Right.
Life is not going to be about, I mean, as much as I enjoy my technology, right, in terms of like my iPhone, but by the end of my life, I'm not going to be like, dang it, I can't get my iPhone 27 or whatever the new iPhone
right.
is. Well,
like some people might be like that, but the majority are not.
Right. It's going to be like the people in my life that I'm going to miss, and they're going to miss me, right?
I agree.
So, and this topic also makes me think about when you're in an airplane, and they say the fact that when there's like a turbulence and things like that, and let's say the oxygen mask comes down, that you need to put it on yourself first before you put it on your kid.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And it's not a selfish thing. It's because if you can't take care of yourself and you're not conscious, then you're not going to be able to take care of anyone else.
Right. And that's so true in every other aspect of your life. You know, that's a perfect situation to explain why it's so important for you to take care of yourself. I don't think it's like emphasized enough, especially at my age. It's not emphasized enough how important it is to care and love yourself.
Yeah.
You know, because that's like when you're really growing, especially in high school. That's when you're growing. You know, you're really becoming like who you think you're going to be, and like you're figuring out if you want to stay the same person that you are, if you still have the same interests, the same values. Do you want to go into a religion? Do you know, who are you? What do you want to have? You know?
Yeah.
And I feel like within your 4 years of high school, it's time that you learn, like, no matter who I'm going to be, how I'm going to act, I have to love myself, respect myself, and support myself in every situation, you know, and respect myself. And I feel like not enough people learn that. And because of that, they go into these relationships with people, and they end up having a really hard time, you know, having a healthy relationship because they're not stable within themselves and they don't love themselves. So the person they're with can take advantage of that, you know, and they can really put you down because of that. And I'm
Yes.
meeting a lot of people my age in high school that were trampled in relationships because they didn't know how to
Cope.
cope and be confident within themselves to say,
Yeah.
hey, I don't want this to happen. I don't want to be like this. I don't want you to treat me like this. And yeah.
So yeah, you just told me about a story about a friend whose boyfriend was verbally abusive.
Yeah. And he was verbally abusive, and he was not the type to communicate what he felt in ways that were kind and caring and able to, you know, have communicative skills with the other person. And he was really felt like a self-entitlement that I deserve this and I should have what I want. And it was really hard for her to be able to be there for him. And she was constantly being like put down, and she had horrible coping skills that put her in a bad situation, and she would self-harm because of that, because she didn't know how to, you know, handle things that she couldn't control. And so she tried to put something that she could control into view, which was self-destructive, right?
Right. And you know, you said something to me, I believe, yesterday, and what you said to me was the fact that a lot of times people start this journey of self-harm actually not in high school, but
No.
it happens in middle school.
Yeah.
And this is really interesting to me because, hey, Steven, that's my cousin. A lot of you guys are coming on, like Jennifer, yay. I'm so glad the fact that you guys are here.
Hi, Tolu. Hi, Samantha.
Yay. And one of the reasons I teach 8th grade is because I believe that 8th grade is the crossroads. And
Right.
this crossroad, like, where, like, kids will at least kind of listen to their teachers. But once they get high school, like, things are solidifying really fast, like freshman year, like whether or not your friends, whether or not your extracurricular activities, whatever it is that's going to, like, be the thing that's going to gel you to some people is going to happen fast. And if teachers aren't necessarily the people that you're going to give, you know, allow in your head, in your heart, then it becomes very, very difficult. This is the reason why, for me, I believe that 8th grade is like almost like the last real stop where adults can actually get in some of their, you know, I don't know, influence, right?
Yeah.
And so you had mentioned that you've noticed that for a lot of people who has this journey or begins their journey of self-harm, that it takes place in 7th or 8th grade. And you had mentioned to me that even your own journey was around that time. Because remember, shayshares is about transform yourself, inspire others, change worlds, right?
Right.
So your world has changed, and I'm hoping that as you share your story, that other people will also, you know, change their world also. Yeah, exactly. We learn from each other, right? Because none of us are sitting on a high horse. We're all people, and we're just going through stuff, and we're doing our best to manage and in the process help other people who've gone, you know, who are going through it.
Definitely.
Yeah.
And you know, that's so true and so hard for so many people to understand that. Like, people really do genuinely, especially now that I've noticed like within just like my peers, that a lot of time accepting they do not know everything, and that it does take time to learn. And you know what? It's okay if you need to ask somebody for help. It's okay to say.
Right, someone just mentioned that high school is a different life. That's one of the comments.
I told him. Yeah. High school is a different life, because in middle school, you know, it's really hard because, you know, that's when you're the most insecure. Your hormones are everywhere. You know, you're actually growing physically. Your body is, you know, changing, and that does really affect you in a lot of ways. But high school, I feel, is even more different in terms of who you like put into your circle of trust. Like, a lot of people put in the wrong things in their circle of trust. It's like we're treating people so badly, but we're treating our materialistic things better. And that's what we put into our trust circle. And that's the thing that should change the most. Like,
well, it's interesting you mentioned that, because one of the things I said to my students at the end of the year is that instead of loving things and using people, if we would love people and use things.
Yes, that's exactly it. Yeah, you know, it's like when you're in high school, the most thing that's so important is to have somebody in your life that's like a role model and like a figure and that can help you be the best you that you can be. And sometimes that's within your friend group because they want to support you and you want to support them, and it's a healthy relationship. Or sometimes it's a teacher, and I don't feel like enough people go to teachers
Yeah.
because they can't.
Well, it's funny.
But
Jennifer says, "I remember that." That's amazing. The fact that you remember that, because I haven't said that for the longest time. That whole loving people.
I'm pretty sure you said that in my class too.
Did I? Well,
Yeah.
I didn't come up with it. It's, I don't remember where I learned that from. But I think like a perfect example of this is that like my own children right now are in Montana. So I'm using Marco Polo, which is an app, like a walkie-talkie video app, and I'm using that to access my children, right? So I'm loving my kids, but I'm using technology instead of loving technology so much and then just using other people, right? And so going back to like 7th and 8th grade, you had mentioned that that you started not handling things very well, and because of that, self-harm came to place. Do you want to start with that story? You said you had shared that with other people when you were in high school also.
Yeah, I have. So I started self-harming when I was in 7th grade. Like, my parents had gotten divorced, and I didn't really like have a parent figure in my life. I had friends, but I didn't have anybody that I could really look up to, that I knew that could be there for me in ways my friends couldn't. And so, yeah, I self-harmed because I wanted to feel like I had control over something, because it felt like everything around me was just getting bad, and that like no matter what I was going to do, it was just going to get worse, and my life was going to keep going downhill, and it was just going to be a snowball effect of destruction. And I was honestly my own destruction. I was my own obstacle. And yeah, so I self-harmed starting 7th grade, and it took me 5 years to genuinely stop. I used self-harm as a coping mechanism. I used it to feel. I used it to make me think that I was going to be okay eventually. I used it to survive the next day. And I genuinely do regret it, but I don't think I would have changed anything because I wouldn't be able to talk about it now. But it's terrible. It's a terrible way to cope with what you're going through, because when you do that, you're telling yourself that you don't matter. You know, you're hurting your body, and your body is so important. Me being a Christian, like, I genuinely believe like God gave you the body that you deserve, and like he genuinely believes that your body is beautiful just the way it is, and you hurting your body is hurting you because it is a part of you. It's a huge part of you. And if there's like any other, like anything I could really say about self-harming, like, please don't do it. Like, find another way to handle what you're going through. There's so many better coping skills. I just recently stopped. Like, yeah, like I've been doing it for 5 years, and I just stopped last year. And well, last year, beginning of this year. And it was genuinely really, really hard, but I was able to do it because I became a Christian. And, you know, Christianity has played a huge role because it taught me that I do have, you know, a father figure in my life, and I have somebody that really loves me. And, you know, I found somebody, like, I found a community of people that care about me in school, including teachers and friends that support me. And especially my family, my family, meaning like my mom got remarried, and my stepdad has played a huge role in making my life better and making me believe that I have something worth living for.
Yeah. So it sounds like you had support in your church community, and then you also had support in your family community in that sense, right? So a lot of this sounds like it's an issue of also just not feeling alone.
Right. It really is. You should never let yourself feel like you don't have anybody, because that's not true. Every one of us has silent lovers, and when I say that, I mean like there's somebody that genuinely believes that you are worth something, but you just haven't talked to them yet. Yeah. Like it really is that. Like I remember coming to my freshman year and my sophomore year, and I didn't really feel like I had that many people in my life. Yeah. And like around junior year and senior year, I was really involved. I was involved in ASB anyways, but I started to like reach out into like other clubs. I was really more involved. And I started to notice that, like, people would text me and say, like, wow, like, I'm so proud of you. Like, you're doing all these great things. Like, one of my, like, closest friends, Jamie, she always tells me how proud of me she is. You never know who really genuinely is, like, looking after you and, like, noticing, like, you're doing these great things. And when they appreciate you, it's
Yeah.
like, wow, like, like, thank you. Thank you for noticing that. And I appreciate it.
Well, I think
I
this goes back to
definitely,
what you said in terms of like we matter, right?
we
So
did
if our
all,
body is a part of us, then when we are disregarding it, right, then it's a physical representation. It's almost symbolic also of just the fact that we don't really care about our like internal self, right?
mm-hmm.
The part of us that is the personhood, not just the body. Jennifer says a lot of kids feel like at the end of the day, all they have is themselves because everyone seems to turn their backs on them.
I
And I
get
think
that.
that's, yeah? What do you
I
mean
get
by
what
that?
I get
What do you
why
think Jennifer's mean by
you
that?
because so many kids like say that to me all the time, like some like they get close to somebody and then they leave, and like you have abandonment issues because like you trust this person and you trust them like with your feelings, like everything you've never told somebody before, and then they leave, you know. And it's like,
Yeah.
what do I do? Like, I just trusted you with everything. I'm so afraid to like ever let myself get close to anybody. And
Oh.
else also speaking for some kids, even though we know we aren't alone and there are people there for us, but for some reason we still feel alone. I think like in the whole feeling alone, it's because, and this is just my opinion, but I feel like when you feel alone, it's because you genuinely feel like nobody's there for you and you have
Yeah.
nobody to go. And there are so many, and even if it's not actual physical people, like religion in my part has played a huge role in that. Although I know like, I can't physically see my God, I know
Yeah.
there is, and like
Yeah.
that, I feel like I have a purpose because God made me to have a purpose, and
Yeah.
so I feel alone now, but like God has a plan for me, you know,
Yes.
like
Yeah.
I'm expecting everything to go my way, but if it doesn't go my way, that's fine because God has a plan and He always will, and He's always there for me regardless of what I want. He already knows what I need, you know.
Well,
So
while you're talking, I just feel like you're full of light, right?
I
Well, no, it really does feel that way. And it's interesting because I'm coming across quite a few people that are saying those things to me. They're saying the fact that they have had some void in their life, and
mm-hmm.
somehow, and it doesn't necessarily mean that it was like necessarily Christianity, but it's some sort of force bigger than themselves has helped them to feel like they're not alone, or that they're complete, or that they're accepted, or something about like unconditional love.
Because that's what a God is all about. You know, God is all about having unconditional love, having somebody, having a God, having a creator that made you just the way you are and loves you just the way you are and wants you to be here in this world and has a purpose that is so enormous, and you might not understand it right now, but that's
Yeah.
okay because He has a plan for you and He always has. And it might not be what you want, but He knows exactly what you need. And I feel like so many people, and I get this, like I genuinely get it because I know how like I am as a person. I'm full of anxiety and I genuinely have like a control problem. I want to control everything in my life. Everything that I can control, I try my best to. But at some point, like you just gotta stop and let God do His job. And that's
Mm.
just, you know, how I feel it is.
So I'm hearing a lot of trust also, right? There's something about trust. Like things might not go your way, but like it's not the end of the story.
It's
Like there's
not.
still
And
another chapter to be written.
yeah, definitely. Definitely. Everybody is afraid of like going through something and not being able to handle it, but everybody goes through something. Everybody's
Yeah.
always going through something. And the more that we talk about it, the less we'll feel alone. Because the more we support each other, or even just have a religion or have a God to believe in, the less we're going to feel like nothing will ever get done. Nothing will ever get better. Because you're
Yeah.
always
Yeah.
going to they can hold on to. I love what Jennifer just said. Trust the process. Yes, like trust the process. That's what it all is about. Trusting in something, believing in something. You need something more than yourself that you can genuinely hold on to that you know is not going to leave you. And
Yeah. So
sometimes that's
Yeah, it's interesting because like I was thinking in terms of like me even going through this divorce last year, that there's parts of it I just had to tell myself like whatever I'm feeling right now, this too shall pass. And also to be okay with the fact that there's mystery in it. Like I don't know what all this will mean or does mean, but like eventually the way that I feel today is not going to last forever, right? So there are moments where I just told myself like, Shay, you need to go to the gym as much as you don't want
Yeah.
to go to the gym. And that to me was self-care, right? Or like I told myself, like, you need to go to bed. You need to eat something right now, even if you don't feel like it. So it was like my way of saying, like, you could go and do destructive things, but why are you going to do that? You know, and the thing is, I don't have a tendency to drink or anything like that anyway. But just like even just sitting in front of the TV like all day long and watching Netflix, right? Instead of like going out and going for a walk in the park. So even self-harm doesn't have to, I mean, for some people, they could be a workaholic and that's their self-harm, right? Self-harm could be like you're exercising to the point where it's unhealthy.
Yeah, right. I agree.
Right? So it's anything that's like numbing you to feeling. So in a previous shayshares, I mentioned that this guy said to me in the gym, in the locker room, that we should drink to remember, not to forget. And I think you can take that saying and apply that to almost anything. Like, eat to remember, not to forget, right? Because you can like overeat to the point where like all you're doing is like trying to not forget, like to forget the feelings that you have. So I think part of self-care is just having this awareness about what you're feeling and be able to process that. So one of the strategies that I have learned for self-care, and I mentioned this before to my friend, and her little kids were around. They thought it was hilarious, actually. These kids were like in elementary school, right? But what I did was I took the perspective of an alien that just had no like from outer space, and who like was just viewing this person named Shay, and be like, he looks really sad right now. Huh. I wonder why he's so sad. Right? And so what is called in coaching is the observer mind, right? So instead of like reacting to what we're going through, be curious. Like, wow, you've been sitting in bed for 5 days straight. What might be causing that, right? Like, that's really interesting. And so even just separating yourself a little bit from the situation and to get curious around it might be the thing that you need, so that where you're not, because I think sometimes when we're so overwhelmed with our emotion or so overwhelmed with our anxiety, we can't process anything but that emotion. And I think the emotions really take us in two directions. Either we're so much in the past because of guilt or shame, right? Or we're so much into the future because we're using our, what do they say? We're misusing our imagination, and we're always thinking about the worst case scenario. And so we're either stuck in the past or we're stuck in the future. But what we're needing is we're needing awareness for today. What am I experiencing right now? And how can I manage this moment right now? Because if we can't manage it, then we're going to try to numb it. We're going to try to suppress that. And that's when I think we get into trouble. Because if we can't be in the moment, then are we really living? We're like a zombie. We're a shell of a person, right?
We're always constantly living for the next day, and we just stop. We have to start living for today. And I really, really agree with that, because me being like, you know, just being in high school, like I remember every day that I was in high school, I was living for like the next, like I was like thinking about like the next week. Even now I'm thinking about the next week. Because that's like how I live my life. Like I have to constantly be planning for what's next, but instead I just want to live my life today and do what I want to do today, and like just reflect, because I don't feel like I reflect what I have to be, what I want to do for me. You know, it's like all these like obligations you feel for yourself that you need to get done, but it's okay if you just don't. You know, it's okay to live in the day. And
Jennifer just said, we stopped living in the moment, right? She says, when I was trying to be happy and focusing so much on being happy, I like stopped living. I feel like that's one mistake people make. They're so focused on trying to be happy.
Yeah, oh my God, that's so true. We're focused on the future of how we're going to be happy later. Because we're focused on, especially our age, like me as a teenager, we're all focused on like, okay, let's go to college, we're gonna get this job, and we're gonna be happy because we're gonna make enough money, and we're gonna go travel. But like, let's just be happy now and find out what makes us happy now, because that's how we are as people, you know?
Yeah.
Like,
Well, it's funny. Yesterday, I went to a Toastmasters, and one of the ladies there said the fact that when she was a kid, she would like have this playhouse, and she'd be cooking, and she'd be vacuuming, and she'd be doing all these things, and she'd be like, "This is so much fun." And now, you know, like she wanted to be an adult, right? And she was like, now that she's an adult, it's like, I don't want to have to be cleaning and vacuuming all this stuff. So, like in our brain, we're always, when we're a kid, we wanted to be older as soon as we can.
Oh my
even though our parents say like, enjoy being a kid right now.
Mm-hmm.
Just enjoy this, right? Enjoy this time in your life. But I think that's true of all of us, right? Like, how then do we do that? How then do we like say, like right now, I'm in this is summer vacation for me as a teacher, right? Like, so how can I enjoy this moment right now? Because when I'm back in school, I'm gonna be like, oh man, I want like some time off. So, but you're always striving for something that you don't have right now. So instead of me going around like now and just, so yesterday I went for a walk in the park, and I was just like, it was nice. You know what I told myself? I said, what if this was a different country, and I was on vacation, and I traveled to this magical place called Riverside, and like I lived in a city where there was no parks. And suddenly I got to see green trees and green grass, and like where I came from, maybe it was full of snow, or maybe it was the desert. And then suddenly I was like, this park is gorgeous. It's beautiful, right? And all I was doing was just accessing what was in front of me. Instead of like constantly wanting more and more and more, just like be so grateful for what is right in front of you.
I literally love that you're saying that right now, because like I was like thinking about that earlier today too, because like me and my mom are so different. Like my mom's all my life, and me and her are different in terms of like, she's like always like, what could be better, you know? And in my head, I feel like I think right now is better. Like it'll never get better than right now, you know? Because there's so much that's so good as it is right now. And you never know how much bad or how much better it can ever be. So whatever you have right now, like be happy with it, because that is what is yours, and not everyone has that.
Well, I agree with you. I think part of it is like we should have goals, we should have dreams. Like you're going to college, right? Congratulations, being accepted, right?
Thank you.
San Diego, right? You see San Diego, is that right? And so I think that's great. I think we need to have those things. But I think it's an issue of, do we give up the moment as we're making those plans, right? So I guess an example of this is this, and I'm going to do this like a super like almost like simplistic one, right? But I think most of us can relate to this. You are at a buffet, right? And you fill up your first plate. If you're constantly thinking about the second plate, you'll never enjoy your first plate. Like, that's so true. Enjoy what is in front of you. Like, savor it, put that thing in your mouth, like chew it up, swallow flavors. Yes. It doesn't mean the fact that, like, you know the fact there's dessert over there, but if you're constantly thinking about dessert, you're not even thinking in terms of what's in front of you. I think that for me, I think mindfulness is like, I mean, I've learned that so much from my friend Alexandra. She was on the previous shayshares. She was on 2 of them. And she's just a wonderful example of mindfulness. And even my coach who helped me with my mindfulness class, I even took a class at Kaiser on mindfulness, right? How can we be so in touch with the moment? Right. That we can feel like full, and I think that's where gratitude comes in, right? Like seriously, I'm like thinking about like a buffet right now, and I haven't had a buffet for a long time, but like just thinking like bite in, like I've been really good about like my eating, right? But like yesterday, I was at the Toastmasters, and I was up in Orange Crest, and so I'm like, I have not had a Tommy's chili burger in a long time. And man, when I took that first bite of that burger, I was like, this is the tastiest thing ever, right? But the thing is, it was like, it wasn't my first time, but it didn't matter. It was my mindset, the way that I bit into it, right? It's kind of like eating that first slice of pizza. I mean, that first bite, that corner, that first triangle bite, and like you just, I think that kind of bite, if we did that with everything, when we saw each other, right? When we see our friends, or we see our family members, or we do anything, right? I mean, I remember I would tell myself sometimes, like, this was before when Miss Sun and I would be watching a lot of Survivor, and I literally would, you know, when you watch those shows and they like eat food and they like they're like starving, they're like emaciated.
Like, the first meal I've ever had for their whole entire life.
Yes. You know what? It's like this. Like, here's my Spider-Man water bottle, right? And so what I'm telling myself, like, okay, here's the mindset. My mindset is, I have been in a desert. I have not had any water for 3 days, and now I'm going to drink this. Oh my gosh, that is amazing! Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, you can fully experience that because
it's all about mindset.
It is about mind. And the thing is, like, that's true for people in the world. They don't even have fresh water. We take this for granted. The fact that water comes out of our sink.
And even then, so many, and it's not just about mindset, it's the fact that my generation specifically feels so entitled.
Oh, yeah.
Everything we have, everything, our clothes, our phone, you know, our, like, the house we live in, this entitlement that we deserve everything that we get, that it should be given to us. And I can't explain it enough that we don't deserve anything. We don't. And no, and not enough people understand that. You know, everyone wants everything handed to them. Not enough people know what it's like to work hard for what you have. And when you do, that's when you're like, oh my God, like, I'm so happy I got this, you know?
Yeah.
Like, me, when I got my job, like, I was starting to pay for things, like, I started paying my phone bill. I was like, oh my God, like, I'm paying my phone bill. Like, I'm so proud of myself. Like, that's my phone. Like, I'm paying it, you know?
It's a sense of accomplishment, right? Because it wasn't just dropped in your lap. Right.
Yes. And I don't feel entitled to it. And if that was taken away from me, I wouldn't feel like I need it. Because, you know, it's what it is. It's materialistic. It's not needed for me to live a great life. It's not needed for me to be happy.
Yes. So it's funny you should say that, because if I had to go and dig a well and to get this water, I'd be like, oh, water, you are the gift of life. Without you, I would die.
Oh, yes.
Right? Yeah. So Jennifer's asking, any high school relationship advice?
Depends. What kind of relationship advice? Like, you're in a relationship and it's a bad relationship, or like, just like in general? Because like,
I mean, like things are going well. How can I continue to like foster that relationship? Is that what you're saying?
I feel like when you're in high school, I think it's all about you're changing, you're constantly growing, and if a person can accept the person you're going to become, or the person might stay at, then that's great. And if they can't, kick them to the curb.
So Jennifer's saying, just in general, in your relationship, high school advice.
Okay, I feel like it's all about like you supporting and being there for them, but yourself at the same time. Because I feel like it's so important for you to love yourself, care about yourself, grow for yourself, and then care about somebody else. Because you're both growing, you know, and you want to be there for that person, but you can't be there for that person if you're not okay. And I think that's huge. And it's also me. I'm Sri Lankan, so I'm that little country right under India, and like I'm counted as South Asian. And like Asian culture, we don't really, date. Like it's not really a normal thing to date in high school because education comes first. That's the most important thing. And like when I had just recently told my mom that I'm in a relationship, although she doesn't support me, she has been kind enough not to like be mean to me about it and like we're out of the relationship. But I know it's not that she doesn't want me to be in a relationship. She wants me to put myself first, and she wants me to be able to balance my academics, my education, my future first before I get into a relationship. So that's just like, I genuinely kind of agree with that, because a relationship in my head is like amazing and it's important, but I feel like if you can be stable within yourself, then you're going to be fine in any relationship you're in.
Yeah, it makes me think it's like you need to be secure in yourself so that way you're not trying to be secure just with that other person. Like if that other person is the source of your everything, that person's a human being, and they're going to let you down just like you let yourself down at times. So Jennifer says, I believe it's good to have self-love before loving someone else. A lot of high schoolers rely on there to be happy. Yeah, I think it is a source of happiness.
And it is a source of happiness, but it should not be the only one. You know, you should find happiness in yourself first, or happiness within something else before you find it within like a whole person. Because if that person leaves, you shouldn't let that determine whether or not you're happy. And a lot of people that I know, like, completely lost themselves, completely lost their sense of like emotional stability, lost their sense of like wanting to go to school and wanting to have good grades because they didn't have like that significant other that they love. But I know how that feels, but I don't want that to be the reason. I don't want anyone else to be the reason why you can't be the best you know?
Well, let's tie this into the whole self-love and self-harm thing then. It sounds like part of self-love is that when you're in a relationship, that you're still taking care of yourself, right? And then if the relationship goes south, then for people that did not take care of themselves, it's easy then to self-harm, right? I mean, I this is not I mean, this might be like a stereotypical thing, but when you think in terms like romance, like romantic comedies, right? The guy breaks up with the girl and she's sitting there with a pint of Ben and Jerry, right? I mean, part of that Ben and Jerry thing is like, I mean, granted, maybe for the moment, that's fine. But if we're talking about, like, all you're doing is, like, feeding your face because the fact that, or it could be whatever, right? It could even be, like, guys, right, drinking afterwards, going to a bar, and all they're doing is drinking because the girl broke up with them. It's the same thing. It's self-medicating, and there's positive ways for us to self-medicate, right? Like talking to a friend, or going for a walk, or it could be, like, take a shower because you haven't taken a shower for a while, or go get a haircut, right? Like all of those things are examples of, or like I'll take myself out to the movies. Like I'll take myself on like a Shay date, right? Like a Shay date to the right, and then all I'm doing is like
I go and get my nails, and I go pedicure done, and I just go and like pamper myself because I gotta love the way you look, and it makes you feel brand new. Yes.
I think that's right there. It's honoring yourself, right? You honor yourself when you feel like, and I wonder sometimes that maybe when we are not feeling good about our self-worth and we feel ashamed, right? We feel shame within ourselves, which is a really low frequency. And when we can honor ourselves, when we can truly like appreciate and value our self-worth, then our whole mood shifts, right? But I think for some people, it's very difficult to actually honor themselves. Sometimes it's easier for them to honor other people. So even if like you are so down and out and you don't feel like good about yourself at all, but in your mind, you're like, you know what? I think I would have the energy to help someone else. Like go and like give water bottle. Like I carry water bottles in my car, so when I see a homeless person, I can give them a water bottle because I don't want to give them money, right? And it's so hot in Riverside anyway. So even like just doing something for someone else might trigger in you, like I'm taking care of that person. I probably need to help myself just the way I'm trying to help that person, right?
Yes. Yes. Okay, so that I actually have something to say about that because I remember. So when I started working at Subway, I've been working there for a while now. But when I first started working at Subway, I like didn't really like love my job, but I did like helping the customers. And I remember like there was a couple times that like I would get tipped. They'd give me a couple dollars like for me to keep for myself. And I literally felt like I was like the best person in the entire world. Like I felt like nothing could ever go bad. Like I was so happy. I was like, oh my gosh, like they really believe in me to give me $1. Like, oh my gosh. Like so now whenever I go out, I go and tip like whoever. I'll tip like every person that serves me, every person that helps me at a store.
Really?
Because yes.
Wow.
It's a couple coins, maybe it's a couple dollars. It's important to appreciate somebody because somebody might. And sometimes giving a little bit that they feel like they're never going to get goes a long way.
So, okay, so that's really interesting you said that because, like, Miss and I got this argument in China, and I was so down and out. Like, I was feeling horrible, right? Because we had gotten this fight. And we were at McDonald's, right? And in China, like, there are no, like, lines, right? Like, there's, at least it wasn't back then. So we were like basically it's like a crowd of people going to McDonald's, right, trying to get to the front line. But this lady was like made some room for me, and then like even like offered to like help me. And I'm like, there are good people in this world.
They
Like,
really are.
I think that's what it is. It's like just a little bit of kindness, right? I have this little sign on my right here. Do all things with kindness, right? This is on right above my light switch. Above my light switches in my apartment, I have these little sayings. And I really think that sometimes even just showing a little bit of kindness, it's like giving giving a flower just a drop of water when it has not, it's going to soak that water up. And I think sometimes we go through our day and it could be someone smiling to us. It could be someone just asking how our day is. And then like suddenly you're like, oh my gosh. Like there's still good in the world. Like I saw hope.
I remember like being in ASB, our principal, Miss Miliacho, she asked the ASB class to go out and to any store that you go to, you read when it's like a restaurant, you read the waiter or the waitress's name tag. Like, for example, like, hey, Sarah, how are you today? You know, how are you today? And one of the senior president at the time was like, I asked this woman this, and like the woman like beamed with light. Like she was so happy to be asked how her day was. Like, I guess that's not something that people get asked, and that's something that should be asked. Like, are you okay? How's your day? Like, are you having a good day? Do you want to talk about it? It's like
well, I think part of it is, and by the way, we're like totally over by 15 minutes. We were going to keep this a third, but I hope you're okay right now.
Yeah, I'm good.
No, but I think that when it comes to being seen, right? I think so many times we don't feel like we're seen, like we're invisible. But when someone sees us, even for a moment, even saying our name, that could be like the difference between like, oh, wait, I am here, right? Like, oh, I'm not invisible, right? Like, it's almost like when we use the word ghosting when it comes to relationships. But even with the people in our world that are in our relationship with us, do we just go around ghosting people? Do we just look past the person? Like, we don't even see them. We don't even acknowledge their presence.
That's so funny you say that, because I was talking about in my sociology class, our teacher had given this example. We had this project that we had to do where we had to do something out of the social norm. And so one of the students a couple years back went in front of the street and, acted as a homeless person. They just held up a sign and they just, walked around. That student said that they've never felt more invisible than then, because everybody's driving past you, nobody's talking to you, nobody's acknowledging you, no one's even looking at you. And like, we really as people do that. We are so like quick to like forget everyone around us. Sometimes we're just so within ourselves that we don't think there's anybody else that is going through anything we're going through. There's nobody else that will understand us. But I feel like if we all pay attention to each other, I think there's so much more good that could be done with the world.
Well, let's actually tie this back into the self-harm and the self-care thing in relation to technology. Because one of the things that you and I talked about is that we are connectively disconnected, or something like that, right? Like, we are living in a time period that we should be more connected than ever before. And I definitely think that technology plays a part in helping us to feel connected. I mean, look at us. We're connected right now through technology, right? So there's like positive ways. But at the same time, it seems the fact that technology also makes it so that we are disconnected from one another. And I think for a lot of people, this is what then leads into self-harm, because we look at Instagram posts, or we look at Facebook posts, or Twitter tweets, and we see the fact that people are doing this or that, and it's all what's the word, like curated, right? Like, we are selecting parts of ourselves, but other people, they don't see the fact that they don't see us necessarily when we're sad and things like that. And yet when we compare ourselves to other people's like bests all the time, then sometimes we feel we're less than.
And then when we start to feel less than, try to figure out ways to make ourselves better, make ourselves feel like we're worth something. And then sometimes we can't find a way, and then we lead ourselves into self-destructive ways of not being able to control something, not being able to be enough, or be as amazing as the next person, or be as popular as the next person, and then that leads sometimes to self-harm.
Yeah, well, yeah, I think it's because we feel hopeless, right? If we feel hopeless, like, why should I even try? Like, no one loves me, no one cares about me, so why should I even care about myself?
Exactly that. Coming from a school where there was a suicide or some kind of death that was destructive, every year at my school, I can say that hopelessness is one of the biggest things we deal with. I talk about this with my stepdad all the time. So many people are committing suicide more now, and so many people my age are so full of hopelessness, like, lead to like drinking and doing drugs to fill the void of what they don't have, because they're hopeless and they feel like there's nothing that will ever get better, and I just have to find a way to find a way to feel good, find a way to find some kind of like, love, or some kind of like fill this void of like, I have something better to do, I have something to look for. But drugs, self-harming, those are all things just to fill the void that it's not going to fill forever. It'll only get bigger.
That's part of the human experience, the human condition, right? This is one thing that we all deal with. It's just the fact, and I think part of it is, I think all of us are capable of any range of self-harm, right? It's because none of us are immune to it. And you had mentioned to me the fact that you actually started an organization, or you started something to help because this was such a thing that was close to your heart, right? Was it your sophomore year or something like that? You said you started something like that?
The sophomore year, when I created You Matter Week. And I talked about, in You Matter Week, it was made to prevent people from committing suicide or prevent people from feeling like they were alone. I tried to give as many suicide prevention hotlines, and just hotlines for emotional stability, and if you're within your family, if you need to live, if you're having issues within your family, if you need to find a safe house, if you need just resources to get through the day, to find somebody to connect with. Because I know so many kids feel like they don't have an adult to speak to, but there are adults that care about you and that will genuinely be there for you.
Right.
Started You Matter because I wanted people to know that we are not alone, and we are all unified at my school. We are all together, regardless of what we're going through, regardless of our obstacles, regardless if we feel like there's nobody that understands us. Somebody understands you. And where it starts in high school, it starts in school, when you try to find that will understand you. You just gotta look for them.
It's interesting because even when you get older, at Poly High School about a month or so ago, the district actually held a You Are Enough walk, a community walk. And, it was about people with mental health issues. And everyone knows someone with those mental health issues, and the fact that we all go through things. I mean, Apple TV just announced their own service, a streaming services with different TV shows. And I believe Oprah is talking about mental illness. And I have a friend who actually works with homeless people. And I think this whole thing about what do we do with the people in this world that have been discarded, right? So yesterday I was at this Toastmasters, and one of the guys who was there, he's a photographer, and he actually goes down to Riverside and takes photos of homeless people so that people can see them. He does it in a really artistic way, right? And so I think part of it's just that. I think there are people in our world that we don't see. And I know that I'm guilty of this. I don't always, go to the back of my car and get a water bottle for every homeless person I see, right? And so, and some of it is we've been callous to the fact that maybe some people are going to use the money for different things, or they don't care, or whatever, right? So, I mean, this is a huge issue. So I don't think it's a simple answer. But I think in terms of our own hearts, how do we, in our own life, how do we exercise the ability to just see people in general? Just see people, right? See our family members, see our friends, see the lady at the grocery store, see the barista at Starbucks. Can we actually see people, right?
I there's a lot to that, because I know when I started getting more involved in clubs that had to do with community service, that had to do more with helping the world, I started to notice the world. Like
Mm,
I started, when I would go to the bathroom, like even if I didn't know the girl sitting to me, not sitting next to me, but like standing next to me, like by
yeah.
the bathroom, I'd be like, hey, like, are you okay? And
Yeah.
like I just had a friend, her name's Latrice. Like she had just like texted me like maybe like a day or two ago, and she was like, I remember the first day I saw you in the bathroom when you asked me if I was okay. I didn't even know her, and I asked her that, and now we're friends like 4 years later. You know,
Wow.
like
Yeah.
how it starts. Just notice somebody, and you let them know that I noticed you, and
Yes.
I see
And then,
you. You know?
okay, going back to self-harm. If everyone on this planet today did that to like 5 people, 10 people, how
This
much how much would that cut down on self-harm, and how much would that increase people's ability to start thinking, maybe maybe I do matter, maybe I am enough, and maybe the fact that, that because now I know I'm enough, I can make myself better. Like, you have to have a starting point of this acceptance, right? And then once you accept yourself from where you are, then you're going to want to improve on that. And so, if all of us, so those of you who are listening to this, either currently live or later on, after it's been uploaded, if we just all took time to smile at 5 people, to say hi to 5 people, to say someone's name 5 times a day, right? I mean, if we all did that, and someone did that for us, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's the littlest things in our day that can make such a big impact.
Be the change that you so badly want to see. Be that,
Yes.
because so many people need it. And
And
when you
that's the
learn,
whole Michael Jackson "Man in the Mirror," right? That was the first
yes,
song I started on the first day of school. It was a thing that I did on my yeah. So if we were to wrap up this whole entire Shay shares about self-care and self-harm, like, what would you want to end on? Let's wrap this up.
I think I would want everyone to know that there are other ways of coping with what you're going through. You're not alone. You have somebody that's there for you. You have to find them. And I know it might feel like it's never going to get better, but I swear and I promise it does. Just you got to find a better way to handle it, and you're going to be okay.
Oh, that's a very hopeful last thought. Yeah, I think for me, I think we don't know. Let me end with this story. So this is a story that my mom would tell me, and I think it's an ancient story. And in the story, the animal talks. So there's this tadpole that was in a well, and this tadpole became a frog in this well. And this boy looks down and sees that there's a frog, and then asks this frog a question. The question was, "Hey, frog, 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 how big is the sky, 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 sky?" And the frog says, "Only this big." And I think that's how we see each other. Or I think there's where the compassion comes in. We only see this much of a person's life. We don't see the other. The sky is not this big. The sky is way bigger than that. And each of us only have this much perspective on one another. Of course, we get bigger, as we are, if we get to know that person, right? But
Right.
because of the fact that, we don't know what they're all going through, this is where we have compassion. So this is where, if they're not looking so happy, it might not, don't let's not take it personally, because it might not have anything to do with you. They might just be going through some
Right.
things. And I think if all of us had that kind of like assumed positive intent, and then like if someone's not smiling at you but you smile at them anyway, and even if they don't like if reciprocate, like, the fact that you did your part, right? And then just
Definitely.
and then just hold that loosely. And I think, you know what? I think we're good. I mean, what else can we do? We can't control people's reaction. All we can do is know the fact that we did our part to help out. So,
I agree.
yeah. So
I agree.
5 people today. Or 5 people, yeah, every day, if we can go for 5 people that were like light up their face or light up their heart, like, if we have 5 people every day, if we just try for 5, shoot for 5, I think it would make a difference if all of us did that.
I remember when I was in your class, I made those little red papers like you were explaining, and I had like every paper I wrote for a class. Every student in my class, I gave a compliment. Every student in my class, I wrote in like a little paper a compliment of what I loved about them. And if everybody could compliment at least one person,
Actually,
Just
hold
think
on, hold
about
on,
the
hold on. I'm gonna go grab mine because what you just.
Okay.
I love this as our last thought because this goes back to. Okay, so here's my wallet, right? Here's my shayshares sticker right here, and this is it right here. Look, it's all worn.
Oh my
And it
gosh.
says, Shay son, you're the best teacher in the entire galaxy, and you inspired me so much. One compliment a day, one step closer to making the world better. Smile, Agent Love. And I still keep this. And I think maybe now my reminder is that, like, one compliment a day, right? If we just compliment one person a day, and we each did that, yeah.
Yeah.
Sarah, it has been such a pleasure to reconnect with you after 4 years. I've always thought that you are a beautiful soul and such an inspiration to me, as not only as a teacher, but as a fellow human being on this planet, and also an agent of change. And the fact that you, in the midst of your struggles, that you still keep on keeping on, and that you still have a positive outlook on yourself and on others and the world, it's really, really inspiring. I mean, really, like, you're the reason why teachers teach.
Oh, thank you. Oh my gosh, stop.
No, it's true. That is my compliment to you. You are the reasons that teachers teach. Knowing the fact that we made a difference back then, but the fact that you have flourished, it's great. It's really, like, I think UC San Diego is going to be truly blessed because you're on their campus, because you're going to continue to create ripples.
Thank you.
So.
Thank you so much. It's.
Oh
my gosh.
I really, really want you to, receive that, like, let that land in your heart. Because sometimes we hear compliments, but we don't let them land. And I want you to know that that you doing this Shay Shares means a lot to me, because I saw you transform yourself even in 8th grade. I saw you inspire others, and I saw you change worlds, as a leader, as a human being. And thank you for reminding me of just how amazing of an impact that I can make as a teacher back then, and how the fact that you just inspire me to want to even be a better teacher, and better person too. So yeah, I think this was all meant to be. Like, literally, we only touched base like yesterday or 2 days ago, and I'm like, hey, let's go ahead and let's do a Shay Shares, because it was mentioned before about this whole cutting thing, and so I think this was meant to be.
Yeah, definitely. God has a plan.
Yep, I agree. All right, Sarah. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
Bye.